Hey, I wanted to talk about life as a school, that concept, in this video. And I mentioned this in previous videos in this series where it's quite possible that the earth, this realm that we're living in, is kind of like a school. And it's getting pretty close to graduation time, or rather final exam time. And we're sort of like in the final phases of our learning, and we're cramming right now for the final exams. And that's why everything's going nuts. Everything's happening so much faster than before. We're trying to get the final lessons in before the exams. And some of us are going to pass them, some of us are going to fail them. And if we fail them, we go back to the start of the school. Well, the school year anyway, whatever school year means in this context. And you might say that the lesson plan was well organized from the get-go. Or you might say that it's been chaotic in terms of the lessons that we've learned. And you'd be right either way. If we look back at just the 20th century, right? End of the 19th, beginning of the 20th century is when things really started to ramp up in terms of the number and the intensity of the experiences that we had as people in this world. And you can see that it's been non-stop change, radical change after radical change, and upheaval after upheaval, and war after war, and conflict and death and disease and destruction and authoritarian regimes and all of that stuff. It's been crazy, the pace at which we've advanced, or we've moved forward in this past 120 some years on Earth. Because things used to move a lot slower before, right? We started a bit in the 1700s, middle to late 1700s, when the steam engines were invented, and then it just started kind of snowballed into an unbelievable pace at the beginning of the 20th century. Now we went from horse and buggy to cars, to electric cars, then to gas cars, and now again to electric cars. And from rowboats to speedboats, from no flying or balloon flying to airplanes, jet airplanes, the Concorde, space shuttles, and who knows what else. We went from handwritten letters that used to be delivered by ponies, and got there or didn't get there, who knows, to telephones, telegrams, telephones, emails, online chats, online video chats, and now to instant FaceTime or whatever, Skype or Zoom or whatever the heck you use nowadays. It's pretty incredible. So we went from counting on abacuses to using computers to do incredible number crunching. So it's been an amazing pace in the last 120 years or so, and you have to wonder, was it the right pace, or was it speeded up because we weren't the lesson plan wasn't being met. We were supposed to have our final exams just about these years, whenever they're going to be, and we needed to learn. We needed to go through certain experiences, and we hadn't been getting them, so they needed to be crammed into a small amount of time, or a short amount of time. And because it's apropos, I'm going to say other things. I mean, we went from knowing nothing about our genetics to just a few short years after deciphering the genetic code to now talking about cloning, talking about genetic manipulation, talking about RNA vaccines. We went from not knowing what computer chips were to now implanting computer chips in animals and in people. It's been pretty crazy. We went from not even knowing what a robot was to now talking about cyborgs and androids and all kinds of other things, like controlling an airplane with your thought and things like that, which, by the way, there are programs in the military who are working on this very thing, implantable chips that could then control the airplanes a lot faster than, hand controls. We went from bows and arrows to now shooting things with railguns and other kinds of weapons that speed up the projectile to immense speeds, and it can travel miles and miles into the distance. It's been pretty crazy indeed in terms of a pace. Yeah. So you could say, well, why wasn't this spread out over time? If we think about it as being a school, and if we think about this as a lesson plan, we can say, or we can ask, why this stuff wasn't spread out a little better, right? Why didn't we learn about computers, for example, in the 19th century? I don't know. I don't know why. It's an interesting question. Perhaps if any one of these things had been introduced earlier, and we might have had to deal with it for a longer time, we might not have handled it right. It might have affected us too much, or shifted us into any one direction a little too much. I don't know. I can't pronounce a verdict on that as a human being, obviously. Yeah. What's clear to me is that somebody is in charge of the lesson plan. Somebody did work out this lesson plan a long time ago, and I think it went according to their timeline. Now, we may or may not agree to the timeline, but it's the timeline that we got. By the way, the wearing a watch is apropos because it is getting near the end of the school year, so to speak, the end of these times, the end of this cycle. And I've mentioned this in pretty much, I think, a lot of these videos in the series, and I even mentioned in the first video in this series. So, yeah, it's getting pretty close to the end, and it's going to be interesting how things develop. It should be pretty interesting. I'll say it again. I said it in another video. I keep repeating myself on certain topics, but it's easy to forget when you're faced with all these weird situations in the world, and all of these news that seem more fiction than truth, it's easy to forget that each and every one of us chose to be here at this time, to have this experience. So enjoy the ride, really. But yeah. By the way, the watch I'm wearing is a 1948 Benson, J.W. Benson, a 9-carat gold. 9 carats being the best they could do at the time, because it was England post-war and they were ravaged, and yeah, so they couldn't go any higher in terms of carats. And it's fine. I think 14 carats or 18 carats or 24 carats are much too soft for watches, and they scratch so easily. So, yeah. Very neat watch, by the way. Maybe I reviewed it, maybe I didn't. I don't know if I made a video about it, but that's neither here nor there in terms of this video topic. So obviously, I don't mean for you to think that we should be taking these times in academically, right? We should be looking at them from a distance and trying to distance ourselves from what's going on and not feeling it. Because we are here to have this experience, and trying to not have it would be doing us a disservice, and then doing the world a disservice, because our voice wouldn't be heard in this time. So we need to kind of be part of it, even though it's crazy. So, getting back to one of the things I mentioned at the start of the video, about some people failing this final exam and not making it. Yeah, I think that's going to be the case for a lot of people. A lot of people are not ready for what's coming. And then you might also say, gee whiz, I mean, people in charge of this so-called lesson plan, why did they ensure that more people were ready? And perhaps one answer to that would be that in this realm, in this form, at this point in our development as a race on this planet in this time, we learn best by contrast. It's not enough for us to hear about things and learn from the experience of others, or from reading about something. We've got to have these experiences of negative contrast, you know, of things that teach us in a very real physical way what we don't want from life. So as each of us go through our lives, we have mostly negative experiences. We have a little of the nice experiences, but not enough. I think if we had more of the nice experiences, we might grow to be bored of them. Most of us anyway. In this form, I think we're not ready for a fully nice world. I hate to say it because it sounds terrible, but it rings true. You know, feels right in my gut when I say it, even though here I don't agree with it. And So, correlating this to the lesson plan, I think each of us had the opportunity to learn our lessons from our lives. But a lot of people are choosing not to learn them. They're choosing to go along with the general flow, to be sheeple, right? To be sheep, to just content to be with the flock, doing what everyone else is doing, and not working on their personal development, not working on their own path in life, just letting someone else dictate what happens. And that's certainly one way to go through life, but it's like going through water like a duck or a goose, right? The water just rolls off of you and you haven't learned anything. And the point, once you incarnate in this very heavy density, full of these very strong emotions that destroy you, almost destroy you, and disorient you and make you forget who and what you are. Right? The point of going through this madness is to learn. If you don't learn, if you just go through life, you're going to have to do it over. And it's not a lot of fun to repeat a grade in this realm. I think most of you who are, adults know that it's been a trudge. It's been heavy work. It's been tough. It wasn't fun. So it behooves each and every one of us to do our best to learn our lessons and move on, get the hell out of here. Because this is not what the universe is really about. This is just a stage, a very temporary stage, on which we each act our part, and we're supposed to learn from that, and then we take a bow and move on somewhere else. Or not, right? If we haven't acted our part, if we were content to just sit in the audience and enjoy the show, then we have to do it over. Or worse, if we chose to play the part of the baddie time and time and time again, then we have some extra duties and responsibilities that cannot be avoided. So, I would advise those who choose to play the part of the baddie to think about it very carefully, because you're not getting your consent is not fully informed. Let's just put it that way. You think you know what you're getting into. You're not. You're not. What's coming for you afterwards is going to be very unpleasant. So, very unpleasant. But it is what you choose, right? When you choose to play the baddie in this world, there's a price, and it's a heavy price. Now, we need the baddies. We need the baddies for contrast and for the learning experience. But at the same time, when you have it so nice in this world, and when you do whatever you want with no regard for someone else, there's a price that you pay afterwards. And don't think it's light for a moment. Whatever you were promised when you entered that experience, know that those promises will not hold afterwards. Know that you were knowingly deceived. Know that the very entities to which you swore your allegiance, the very ones that promised you all those things, are going to be the very ones that torture you afterwards. Yeah. So this kind of begs the question, in this school of life, who is the dean of the school? It's a good question. It's worth thinking about. Who's in charge of the students? Is there like a council? Or is there just a dean who takes unilateral decisions? Good question. I don't have an answer for you. I guess we'll all find out at some point. I would say this. As this cycle draws to a close, or as this school year, to sort of follow along with my analogy, as this school year or as this college of life or university of life draws to it's close to its final exams and graduation time, the most important lessons to learn, the most important lessons to learn, are the ones that are directly related to your personal development. Your personal development, each and every one of you. Not someone else's personal development, but yours and yours alone. So the focus should not be on, as you cram for the final exams, right? The focus should not be on knowing everything that goes on in the world and informing yourself on every conspiracy theory and finding out all of the shit that's been going on in the world and all the screwed up ways in which people have tortured and killed each other and taken advantage of each other and schemed and spied and conspired and cheated and swindled and stolen and warred. That's not as important. That's just facultative information. Let's put it that way. That's, the honors course, so to speak. You got to focus on the basic courses. The basic courses are your personal development. As a human being, are you ready to get out of this school? Are you ready to graduate and move on to something better? Or if you were given the opportunity to have what's coming as a foretaste, have the full experience of what's coming, what would you do? With no laws, no government, full freedom. What would you do? How would you handle it? Would you do everything that your hidden desires dictate that you do because there would be no repercussions, or you think there would be no repercussions? Would you do everything and anything? Or would you hold to the path of righteousness, to basic principles, ethics and morals that are supposed to guide our lives? So that's the question that you need to ask yourself. Are you ready to graduate? Can you handle full freedom, full sovereignty? Can you handle heaven on earth? Or would you still want to listen to shit music and blare your speakers so you bother the whole neighborhood or the whole town? Or run your car up and down the streets, doing wheelies and pumping that bass out of your stupid subwoofers? Would you go and indulge in every drug and alcohol available? Would you go and rape somebody because you could? Would you trespass on somebody's property because you could? Because you'd have maybe a flying car, so you could go anywhere, even over somebody's house and bug them, destroy their privacy. Would you go and just cut down forests because you could? Would you go and dig up gold or other precious metals that were readily available and just leave a complete mess behind like we're doing now? Would you do that? Because you could. Well, let me tell you something. All of those people that are not ready aren't going to make it through. They're going to be stuck back in school. And I have a feeling school's going to get a lot harder the next cycle round for them. It's not going to be as pretty. I don't have any predictions for you about what's about to happen. I don't. I've been asked by people, but I don't know the future. I wish I did, but maybe if I did, that would kind of destroy this experience that perhaps I wanted to have when I incarnated in this time. Right? The experience of not knowing, of, you know, being on this ride, this roller coaster ride where you don't know what's going to happen next, and going woo, 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 having that emotional, terrifying, really, experience of life. And believe you me, I may sound calm, and I may sound knowing and in charge of my life when I do these videos, but I have the same doubts as other people. I do not know what's going to happen. I'm confused a lot of times. When I'm faced with various situations, it's easy to forget what I know. It's sometimes I forget even the things that I talk about in the videos. Right? It's the inspiration of the moment, that stream of consciousness stuff that just comes out when I say it, and it's instinctively right. I feel that it's right. I'm not sitting here spouting fiction for you. But when you're in the midst of those heavy, strong emotions that the world throws upon you like bucketfuls of ice water, and you're struggling to make sense of it, you forget the calmness. You forget the things that you knew. And it takes time to regain that balance. It's a struggle for every one of us. It's part of the experience of being in this world. You know, that poem by Rudyard Kipling rings very true. That poem called If you can, so on and so forth. It's worth reading. What is likely going to happen? How likely, I don't know. But what is likely going to happen is a split. A split of, you could say a split of timelines, or a split of realities, where this world as we know it splits into a higher density and a lower density. We're living in the lower density now, but a higher density is going to sprout forth. And the human beings that are worthy of moving forward into that higher density, and this is decided on an individual basis, right? There are also, I believe, beings that do the judging, but it's going to be kind of automatic, more or less, right? Those of us that can actually function and live in that higher density will be able to perceive it, and eventually will be able to stay there. And the ones that can't will stay in this lower density, this world as we know it, which, as you know by now, is pretty crazy. All the craziness that has come out in recent years. I think should give you a pretty goddamn big clue about what's coming down the pike. And it's not fun. It's not going to be a fun ride. Not that it's been fun so far, but it's not going to be fun. If things will continue along the same vein for this density, the world will get more and more authoritarian. There will be more and more madness. Perhaps at some point, I'm not even going to speculate, but you can look around you, see for yourself where we're heading, or where it looks like we're heading, and just imagine it already there, and worse. And then you'll know. It's not going to be fun. So, if you think it's hell on earth now, just you wait. Just you wait, because it's going to get worse. And there are people actively trying to open up. I'm getting into mystical stuff here, but I've seen a bit of it in my regression therapy sessions. So I can say that there are people that are actively working and that have been actively working on opening up permanent portals between this realm and the realm of what we know as hell. There are multiple realms of hell, but let's just say for our purposes, they're trying to open up portals between these two realms, and they've succeeded. It seems like Aleister Crowley, whom I mentioned in one of my previous videos, managed to open at least one portal that stayed open. And a bunch of entities came through that were not supposed to be in this realm. They were supposed to be where they were put in the first place, which is where people go after they die, the bad people. They're supposed to be there so they can do their job on them, right? Well, the dumbass let him through because he was so desperate to make contact with these entities that he would do anything. And of course, it was very irresponsible, to say the least, of him to do that. And he's going to get what's coming to him. He's already been getting it, but he's going to get more of it for doing something like that. And work like that has continued. More portals have been opened. And one could argue that all of the madness that we see in the world today that is accelerating is because there are actual demons in the world who are slowly but surely turning this realm, this world of ours, into hell, a living hell, which is again not supposed to happen on this realm, but it's happening. It's crazy, I know. If you haven't read up on the stuff I'm talking about is going to seem crazy to you, I know, but this is not crazy to the people who are doing this work. This is very much a reality for them. And they've been actually doing disclosure on this stuff. Oh my goodness, I think I would say ever since the horror movies as a genre started to bloom, they've been doing disclosure on this stuff. In each one of those movies, there's a kernel of truth hidden among all the nonsense that they dress it up with. Now, I'm not saying that so you could go and watch those movies to try and get the disclosure, because you'll screw up your mind if you do that. But just know that this is how they work. They do disclosure, but they dress it up in weird, stupid, screwed up ways so you don't know that it's disclosure. And then they say, well, we've done the disclosure. We've told people through symbolism or through stuff that we've hidden in books and in songs and in movies and in whatnot. We've told them that this is what we are, this is what we do, and if they don't know, it's their problem. So, yeah. Remember, this is all the facultative stuff that I mentioned. You don't need to know this stuff. The stuff that you need to work on and the stuff that you need to know is yourself. That's the homework you got to do. That's the deciding criteria. criterion. What's the singular of criteria? Criterion, probably. That is the single deciding criterion, if that's even a word, for what will determine whether you pass your final exam or not, and you move on or not, or you're stuck repeating more experiences in this realm. So just like hell as you know it, or as, well, yeah, the concept of hell as you know it is one of the realms on earth. It's one of the densities here, the lower densities on this plane of existence. Well, not on this plane, but it's right next to it, right? There are multiple layers to these realms of existence, and there are also higher layers. We're about to go into a higher layer, which so far I don't know if it's been populated so much, because very few people were ready to go there, let's just say, historically speaking. So it's going to be interesting as we move there. And some of us may have already been there in this new realm in other lifetimes. I don't know. Obviously, when we incarnate, we lose all of that knowledge. It's behind this veil that I keep talking about. So yeah, this density of Earth will go on, and those of us who aren't ready for the new realm of existence will stay here. Those of us. Hopefully I make it. If I don't make it, I'm going to be pissed, but it's interesting. It's just one of the, it's why we came. It's why we came, to have this experience of not knowing, to have this emotional roller coaster, to, yeah. It's weird. It's weird and fun, and not so much fun, and scary and terrifying and maddening and sickening, and I'm sure we can think up of all kinds of adjectives to describe the way life is on Earth. Yeah. So that's probably what will happen. To make a long story short. Well, short it isn't, because this video is stretching into 45 minutes, so it's anything but short. Call it a classroom experience. Call it a lesson. One of the lessons. Now, this final exam time, as I call it, coincides with the time described in religions as the apocalypse, the end of times. And again, I don't have enough knowledge about it to confirm whether there will be experiences similar to the ones described in those books about the end of times. I don't know. I would say maybe not so much, or maybe yes, but in other ways. You have to remember that the people who wrote those books wrote with the knowledge that they had at the time, and the understanding that they had at the time. Now, our understanding now is completely different from theirs. And so things that they describe in certain words in those books may actually be completely different as we see them, if we get to see them during these times. So I don't know. Another bit of homework for you would also be this. The question of what is the mark of the beast, right? If we're talking about these books about the apocalypse, what is the mark of the beast? I'll let you figure that one out. I'm not going to get into religious discussions. But it is an interesting question during these times. It's going to be interesting, yeah, to see as more people get it. You could freak out about it. A lot of people are freaking out. you could also choose to look at it this way. If, there's no if, but if, short I, if disclosure is being given to us about these experiences that we go through, about the real meaning, if disclosure is being given to us by those who engage in the sort of the occult work, then you could say that the mark of the beast, or the other thing, if you haven't figured out what I'm talking about yet, you should really do your homework on this, is our consent to continue to participate in the same realm, right? So for those people who feel that they aren't ready to handle their life independently by themselves in a new realm where they aren't being told what to do, where things aren't mandated, still consequences, mind you, there are always consequences, but where things aren't mandated, where you don't have a central government, where you don't have any of those things that characterize this experience of life here in this realm. The people that perhaps aren't ready for that, and they still need to have at least one more experience in this realm, one more lifetime, then perhaps that mark is their way of acquiescing, of giving their acceptance to more experience, more of this. And those people that refuse it, that's their way of saying, I'm ready for something better, I'm ready for something new, I'm ready for the new realm of existence. Could be, right? That's one way of looking at it. So it'll be interesting to see how things develop. One thing I would say one more thing, and I've been talking about this so much on my website and in my videos that it's like a broken record, but I keep saying it because somehow, and this is again part of the disinformation in the world, somehow people equate sovereignty with pulling as many babies out of the baby ovens as they can pull, right? With having dozens of babies. Somehow each of them is a blessing from God. And I guess they've been programmed well into the matrix of this world, because that has nothing to do with the new realm of existence, really. It has nothing to do with personal freedom to make babies, on an assembly line where one of them comes out every year. Every 9 months you get one that pops out and goes down the line to be fitted with various options and then spewed out into the world. That's not what life is about. Life is about quality, not quantity. Quality. But perhaps people will understand this. If they need more cycles of life in this realm to get it, or whether they get it when they move on into the new realm, I don't know. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. We'll see. But it's not about that, right? It's not about each of us, instead of having a family, founding a friggin' baby factory and just shooting babies out into the world. That's not what life is about, people. I wish you'd get it, but maybe you will. So, I think this video has gone on long enough. I don't know how many of you are still watching after more than 45 minutes, but thank you if you're still watching. So hope this was of some use to you. And I'm going to wrap it up. And until next time. Bye.